Rob says, from a fan's point of view, I find myself lost for words at this stage. To let this carry on for so long as it has been unexplainable. We're back on Where Canaries Walk with Tom this week, who's been to Derby, has been to Swansea, and I think now has had enough. We are, of course, talking about Norwich sinking into the bottom three. We're manning the lifeboats for Norwich City. Hopefully, by the time you watch this, you'll be looking for a new manager. We're also trying to pick out, I know it's going to be hard, an October Player of the Month. We're talking about horror shows, because Halloween is coming up. What's your worst ever time watching Norwich City? And, of course, we're continuing with the A to Z of Norwich by looking now at the letter D. But more important things to talk about first, Tom. Goodness. Before we get into Manning and all of that, you were decent at Derby for 45 minutes, weren't we? Should we give the team some credit?
Yeah. I mean, actually, we moved the ball quickly. We looked like we were creating chances. I mean, how we didn't score in the first half at Derby is absolutely beyond. Yes, we need the cutting edge and the clinical finishing, etc. But how we didn't score is beyond me. But we all knew what was going to happen second half. You know, as I said to some guys at half time, you know that they're going to change system. You know that they're going to come at us. And you know, I don't know the specific stats, but our goals conceded in the first 10, 15 minutes of second halves is just horrendous.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were going into the Swansea game, but the Swansea fans are all about getting their manager out. They're not happy with him, too one-dimensional, very boring, and then you come along and you've now helped him. So Swansea aren't even that a good side. So you're not just losing now, are you? You're actually losing to poor sides.
Yeah, and the problem is that we are now in a position where I think, like you say, we're losing to poor sides who are all, you know, sort of mid-table or below. We're not getting a thumping. That's probably not far off. But it's just laboured. It's just slow. It's just sideways and backwards. And you know, Bristol City fans will say that's Manning's style. But the problem is you know, when we actually pass the ball forward with intent and with pace and with purpose, and we actually attack, you know, we score a goal like we did yesterday. And you know, everybody sort of had to sort of pinch themselves. I think that we, you know, actually passed the ball forward and we scored a goal. But then second half, I mean, to change the system into the second half when he didn't need to, you know, we were dominating at the end of the first half. We scored a goal. We came out in the second half. He's gone three at the back, and he's made two subs. Now, you know, Manning is obviously very famous for making his 60-minute substitutions. You know, it honestly it's baffling. I think he's running out of options and time very quickly.
Yeah, let's have a look at this one. Yeah, Cal Kane says, what were they subs? The bloke is complete fraud. Players were knackered at 70 minutes. The whole squad is unfit. The coaching is abysmal. And the substitutions were ridiculous. He is without doubt the worst manager in my 55 years of watching Norwich. And that's saying something. Please get him gone. Let's bring in another Norwich City fan to get their views on this as well. Let's bring in a mad statistician around Norwich. Let's bring in Russell as well. How are you, Russell?
Well, I'd like to say I'm well, but I, went to Swansea yesterday, so it's not too bad for me. At least I'm Gloucester based, so we're, wrote home relatively quickly. But yeah, no, apart from that, I'm okay.
All right. Glad to have you with us. Look, were you expecting after Derby that you would go to work on Wednesday and at lunchtime you'd be seeing a corner flag?
I do think we're nearing these moments. I don't think they're too far away. I'm not necessarily somebody that's moved into he has to go. I think there are other issues within the club, if I'm totally honest, that probably for me are a higher priority. Fully appreciate that performances and where it's looking is also pretty dreadful. But yeah, I'm a bit lost essentially on that thought process, and the immediate part is I don't know. I really don't know what's going to be the next step.
Tom, you didn't call him out last week and that he needed to go. 7 days on with 2 defeats and all those miles travelled. Is it time for him to go now?
I was on the fence last week, and I think I've tried to defend him for as long as I possibly can, and I am fully off the fence, and I think he needs to go. I think at the moment, and obviously as Russell just said, obviously there's bigger issues at the club, but I think, as I said last week, the one that is going to impact what happens on the pitch is the manager. So, we can get rid of the board and we can get rid of, the sporting director and whatnot. But I think when it comes down to performances, and we've got 34 games left, that for me is on the manager. We've still got a decent chunk of the season left to turn it around, and hopefully we finish mid-table, which is absolutely light years away from what we said at the start of the season. But I think for me, the players come over at the end, right, and they just stand there with their hands on their hips and just stare at the away end. And they've done it twice now this week, and it's almost like they're staring in disbelief. And I don't know what they're not believing, because we're not believing what we're seeing. I mean, they're the ones putting out the performance. And Kenny McLean said on Tuesday night after Derby that the players should get more of the stick, other than the Napper and Manning, and they got that yesterday in abundance. They stood there in front of the away end to abuse, and they should have done. Because, and I don't understand why, Russ. I mean, have you got any thoughts as to why they just stand there and just stand there lifeless, staring at us?
You could see it's the confidence. It's unfortunately a rot that's been there for many, many years that goes through. You have to sit there and say about ethos and things. Essentially, they're almost used to losing. There's no fight back ability. There's no sort of passion that you can think, do you know what? Okay, I can sit there and get behind this guy here because this guy's going to make something happen, or this guy's going to turn around and give us something. And all it is just excuses, and they stand there and in front of us, and we're just looking almost into the same abyss, sitting there and going, well, you're not going to get us out of it. You're not going to turn around. And I don't know what they think from us that we're going to then turn around and offer. We've sat there, we've tried to be supportive, we've sat there and we've tried to, essentially look at it with a little bit of gallows humour. You can go from both sides of it, but we're not going anywhere. And that is the biggest frustration with the players. They do have to shoulder more. People can sit there and blame Manning as much as they want, but nobody. You're taught under fives. Don't turn around and play a ball against over your box, or essentially across the pitch. It will just get cut out. You're one pass and they're in, and we do it week after week. It's those sort of responsibilities that everyone can talk about. Yes, there's this tactic. Yes, there's that tactic. But the shoulders essentially need to be put out, and they need to turn around. The players have to show some actual backbone and fight.
You talk about players and responses. Tom, what did you make of Shane Duffy's reaction on Tuesday night on social media? Do you look at that and go, good on him, or do you look at that and go, that's a disgrace?
No, he's a nightmare. And the thing is that, he is always, he's been touted to be a bad egg for a few years. There's obviously, the drink driving conviction, and then people thought he was drinking again, and on social media. He shouldn't be allowed near a Twitter account or an X account or whatever you want to call it. He shouldn't be allowed near social media. It should be something specifically in his contract that he's not allowed anywhere near it. It is a disgrace. When you've got, and like I said, it's not too bad for me or for Russell because we're in the Southwest, but when you've got people that left Norfolk yesterday morning at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. to travel to Swansea, and then I know it happened after Derby, but even Derby, people are taking half days off work and whatnot to go to a football match. To then have, an experienced professional footballer just basically, outing fans and atting fans on social media, it just makes a dire situation worse, if that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I've got some more social media takes then, not that they're any good. This one chimes in with what Tom was talking about a minute ago, Russ, so if you agree with it. He said that the first 30 minutes against Swansea we were terrible, 1-0 down. He then switched things up and we were the better team, 1-1. Quite why he then changed things when we were on top is beyond me. Manning is getting 50% out of these players, and that's not good enough. He has to go, and those above him. We'll come on to that last bit in a minute. But yeah, has the poster got a point there about changing things when they didn't need to be changed?
I think I'm going to turn around and offer a little defence on he's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't at this point. He's turned around and, yes, made the change in game. At Derby, and countless games this season, a manager has turned around and made one change tactically, and it's done us. And we have then had no idea, essentially, how to go back from that. And I think I saw a stat where we've now lost every single away game that we've obviously conceded a goal in. The second half, we've lost 1-0 every single game. And, that's a worrying trend of, fitness and everything else. But I do completely agree in that respect of, okay, you've changed it, but he didn't at Derby. He didn't change enough at Derby, and that's then people then throw in everything at him, saying, "Well, you should have changed it." So I do think there's a level of, I'm going to say, desperation, I think, from him, that I'm just going to do anything in the hope that if this works, and people could go as far back, and I'm not saying that we're ever going to reach that level with one lucky change that's going to go. You look at Daniel Farker against Middlesbrough in 2018, where suddenly Stiepermann's been put up to the number 10 position. All right, he's surrounded by Pookie and Wendir and all these wonderful players. But everyone looked at that lineup and went, that is the most ridiculous thing I've seen. That player basically is useless. We've not seen anything from Marco Stiepermann that's anything. Oh, there you go. It basically set the season alight. And okay, he might stumble across it. Unfortunately, I do doubt it. But yeah, it's an incredibly difficult, it's a difficult one for him, that I just think that we've got to a level of desperation where he's just trying anything to get something, because nothing is working.
Free scoring Hull City visit then on Saturday, Tom. They don't have a good record at Carrow Road, actually, but this is a Hull side that can be got at. They have the worst defence in the top half of the table, but they also have one of the best attacks, of course, as well. There's a planned sit-in after the game against the board for all kinds of things. Where do you stand on that kind of action being taken? Is it too little, too late, or do we need more of this going forward?
No, I think the club needs to talk to the fans, and I say fans and not customers, right? Because at the moment, the divide between the supporters and those in charge at the club, I think, is getting bigger. The fact that people are having to take action to get them to notice. I mean, Atanasio is flying over from the US this week for a Canary call phone in on Radio Norfolk on Wednesday night, and that's the first that we've heard from anybody that isn't Manning regarding the wider sort of football operations at the club. I mean, yes, Zoe Webber and Richards did a sort of a Q&A on the fan movement, the fan seat movement situation, but we've heard nothing with regards to this is how we're doing performance wise, and so it'll be really interesting to see what Wednesday brings. In terms of, will any heads roll? Will that, if that is the case, will that appease fans going into Saturday? I mean, if they were going to sack him, then they probably would have done it by now. So unless they're waiting for the owner to come over and he's going to sort of wreak havoc through the club, I don't know. But I mean, I think fans have got to do something to get their point heard, because at the moment they are being treated as customers and a customer number rather than a fan connection with the football club. And we've been here before, and unfortunately, it doesn't end well.
No, Russ, will you be sitting in after the game?
There'll be no chance I'll be there, put it that way. I'm not travelling up all that way to watch us dross and then turn around. Not on that occasion. I do pretty much every away game. No, so I'll save some pounds and pennies, put them towards Christmas.
Okay, very very sensible plan. Right then, let's switch gears from this. By the way, thank you also for all your comments on last week's video as well. I think it was last week, Tom, if you remember, that we had the suggestion of dropping Sargent. That's led to a lot of people commenting last week, going, some were in favour, going, yeah, it's not a bad shout, but others going, what have you been smoking? So, thank you for all those comments as well. We do read them all, so massively appreciate it. We're on to October.
They took him off yesterday after 60 minutes. I mean, Manning said he was unwell, but I think Sargent's reaction to coming off, and I think the fans' reaction to him being substituted, I think tells us what we needed to know about Killian's suggestion about dropping Sargent.
Yeah. Doesn't look like there's much friendship between those two, does that? A manager and Sargent. We're on to October Player of the Month, though. if we can have such a thing, I think we should just cancel the whole award this month, shouldn't we? But Russ, is there any one player that you could say has held their head up higher than others?
Probably we've got Oscar Schwartau, who's probably dug a little bit deeper than everyone else and actually tried to make things happen. Done most of it on his own. If not, we're just going for the standard. It's going to be Vlad. We're making some saves. I still think he's made a couple of errors for certain goals, but they're the only two really that I can look at any major standout.
I'd give Liam Gibbs some credit. I think, in the goal yesterday, lo and behold, we pass the ball forward and with purpose, and he turns on in midfield, and we score a goal, right? So, but I think he comes out of this month with some credit for me. That's
fair.
Some good shouts there. Thank you both of you. It's Halloween on Friday, so that always leads us to asking the question, quite appropriately, what is the worst horror show you've sat through as a Norwich City fan? What's that one game where you've just willed it to end, couldn't wait to get back in your car, couldn't wait to get home? It's been that bad. Any of you got any good ones for this?
Russ, you can go first because you've got an encyclopedia.
It's just whether I'm going with Colchester at home, but at least that had a happy ending in the end, essentially. Brighton away when we lost 5-0. I think I don't typically walk out of games early. That is the only game that I can physically remember walking out at 60 minutes and just saying that is horrendous. 6-2 Plymouth. That's probably another one for it. 6-2 against Newcastle, where every shot just went in that they turned. I think everyone was deflected. But I think probably the most painful one has got to be, I think it was either a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and it wasn't willing it to end in the wrong way for what it was. But we were 3-2 up in stoppage time, travelled all the way there. You sit there and you think we're going to turn around and win this, and we lost 4-3. And you just come out of it and you've just got no idea what on earth has happened. And from that point on, under Alec Neil, that was the end of him, the beginning of the end, and they just completely lost their bottle from that moment. So probably that one, because I still remember the drive home.
Some really good shouts in the comments. Of course, let us know here. Tommy, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say Crystal Palace away in the Premier League during just after COVID. It was around Christmas time. It was freezing, it was raining, and we were 3-0 down after about half an hour. And we had COVID ripped through the squad. So we basically put out like a League One team in the Premier League, and we were absolutely atrocious. But of course, every other club, when they had a bout of COVID throughout the squad, they cancelled their games. Nice little Norwich City turn up and play and wonder why we get absolutely hammered off the park. And that was, I mean, I can't remember whether it was Boxing Day or maybe the 28th.
Just after Boxing Day, we'd lost to Arsenal on Boxing Day.
Yes, 5-1. Yeah, 5-0. Yeah, I told you he is the Norwich City statistician.
Absolutely,
what he doesn't know.
Yeah, my goodness. Right, finally this week then, there's some light relief. We've been looking at the A to Z of Norwich City. We've done A, B and C, and so far it's been quite easy for Tom and the team. This week we're up to the letter D. Russ, sorry to throw you into the deep end here, but we'll give you some thinking time. We're looking for a player, a person, a manager, or something connected to the letter D, which has significance. Tom, it sounds obvious to put Delia in there, but is there a player that you can think of that's had more of an impact than Delia at this club?
I'd say Dion Dublin. He was excellent. I think during his time at Norwich, he played centre half, he played up front. He was a man mountain. Obviously, he was at the end of his career as well and played his last game for us at Hillsborough. And And that was a pretty moving moment when he got substituted at Hillsborough. Little did we know it was also Darren Huckabee's last game, but we won't go there tonight. But yeah, Dion Dublin, I think, is my because I thought the rules stated, Mark, that it had to be the beginning of the surname.
Surname, for the players
yeah.
anyway. But yeah,
Okay,
I think we can count Delia as a D. I think for this one. Russ.
Well, I was actually going to do another double D essentially with it, and it's down disaster, because I just think that's the only way it's going. That's the talking point that I've got. But other than that, we've had Duffy already, so I'll leave him out. He's already had enough time today. Yeah, I think that's what we've got, and it's the way that we're going. So yeah,
okay. All right. In the comments, then, especially some of you of more older vintage, who have we missed that begins with the letter D that goes in the 80s of Norwich? Brilliant. Thank you very much, you two. Thank you, Russ, for coming in and giving your thoughts this week. We massively appreciated that as well. Tom and Killian will be back next week after half-term week, and of course we'll be looking back at the Hull City game to reflect on hopefully 3 points on the board for Norwich City. I dare despair what it's going to be like on here next week if that's 7 losses in a row at home. Can't happen. Just can't.
It can.
We will see you there. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you soon.